Good evening, faithful listeners. It is your very own Andrew Walker, aka Indigo Honeydew, here to ask all the questions you feared would never be answered to this delightful cast, because we are at another bonus action on the Madness Table.
Hell yeah.
And to make sure this is not evergreen content, Hot Girl Summer is over. It is Feral Goblin Fall now. Get after it.
Basic bitch pumpkin spice your life up.
Spice up your life.
On this delightful episode, we
Not
will
sponsored.
be entreating. We never will be. We will be entreating each other and our lovely dungeon master William about some questions about the castle arc. So last time we talked about the first few episodes. Now we're going on to that dark and, as it turns out, extremely dangerous subterranean lair. The first time it started to feel like NPCs were dropping like flies.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? No, let's not fight the feeling. Let's get right in there. Will, did you think this was going to be a corpse factory when you were setting this up?
I knew it was going to have a hell of a lot of corpses in it. I didn't think we were going to add so much to it.
We brought donations.
Yeah, you brought donations to it. I knew it was going to be a heavy mix from the beginning of trials and whatnot for the lot of you, because I took what was potentially going to be 40 days of role-playing travel or coming up with another dungeon, because they only hand you a handful of things that you might run into, of like, let's find out who these characters are hard and fast. So yeah, I filled it with some deadly traps and whatnot and had a fun little sub-story with it.
Wait, so is the castle is in the book, but not to the extent of like...
No, the castle's not in the book. That was entirely homebrewed.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yep. No, I've kept the 3 other potential travel encounters that they have in the book as main points for potential later usage. This was a way of me introducing some of the other things that Out of the Abyss kind of touches on about the Underdark that didn't necessarily get explored, like the fact that, magics and older civilizations have like come and gone. Some have disappeared into the weave that lives within the Ferez, and all sorts of stuff. And that's how it kind of came about.
Huge kudos to you, Will, because I thought that was written.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Well, thank
No,
you.
I mean,
Sick.
the castle was really our first
Yeah.
introduction to the Ferez, and tied in so like wonderfully, pushing us into the rest of the lore. And there were so many lore drops in there.
Yeah.
Like it was really hard to fathom that was all
Okay.
like that didn't belong.
But was the secret passage real? Did you plan the secret passage?
I didn't plan the secret passage. I just did that to you. I was
Nice.
like, you know what? This is fun.
Peel back
I'll let
the
him have it. But I mean, is it a castle if it doesn't have a secret passage?
Thank
No,
you.
exactly.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
No, it was
you just
perfect.
filled in the blank there, and I was like, oh, yes. Okay, cool. We'll do it.
Hey, you're fulfilling your New Year's resolution for gaming to yes and more. You're getting
Absolutely.
Hey.
Absolutely. It
That's
is
a callback
phenomenal. Phenomenal how little notes I've taken for this entire thing.
All right, I got a question here for Lara. What were you thinking when Will first introduced you to Ashni?
Oh my gosh, this was a while ago. So I knew I wanted to do Pact of the Chain, and I'm pretty I literally the method to my madness when it comes to my characters lately is literally like, Will, this is what I want to do. Can you like put your creative spin on it?
Yeah.
and Will was like, yeah, I can create something pretty badass here. And he did. And so Ashni's like entire, like, I don't think I knew anything going into it. It was literally just like, here's your character sheet for your creature. And then when I finally got to see Oshni, I was like, oh. I was given a big boon here because Oshni's gonna grow up and be a badass. And I was very, very excited for sure because there's just a lot of potential with a creature like that.
Absolutely. And on that same line there, Will, what was your inspiration for Oshni? Because that sure as heck ain't in the DMG.
No, it is not in the DMG. Gosh, that was another thing of playing around with, because I always feel like the Pact of the Chain is very lacking. That you can't always have as much fun with it as you potentially could. And so I wanted to give Sam something fun to play with, and you guys now know, especially through the castle arc, how dangerous it's going to get, that I figured something that could potentially grow and be a little more powerful and useful from the beginning would be a better service than, an imp or a pseudo dragon that would go down with one hit.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think you and I were kind of on the same page that like Pact of the Blade is like the go-to for warlocks. And I didn't want to do that immediately. And you and I both wanted to do something that was like creative, but also really strong, knowing that it was going to get crazy.
Yeah. And I was just flipping through, because like randomly I love going through source books, and I came across the Behir, which I haven't run into in too many games and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, they've got such a fun lore. And for the area of the Underdark, it's not their typical domain, but it falls into it. And like the fact that there are giants within the Underdark and the Behir were created by them, I was like, oh, this is just kind of fun. Like, the Underdark is so old and ancient, and so many giants have started in the Underdark. Why not take it back? And so I gave it like the ancient Behir twist and stuff. So
I think this just speaks. Will has a really fun way, in a real niche for like digging into ancients and lore and giving campaigns and monsters this sort of like mythical, larger than life feeling. And I think the whole introduction to finding that buried skeleton and the whole presentation of that cavern leading to the introduction of Oshni was so beautiful, and it made it feel like it made the fortress feel like a part of ancient history. Like it gave it more depth.
Well, thanks, guys. Shucks.
That's a bonus action. It exists for us to compliment Will in a place where you cannot punish or boon our characters.
Yeah, I need to remind people every once in a while that I do have a layer of respect for Will, no matter how thin.
Yeah, so where do we email our invoices for our inspiration?
Yeah.
All right. I am gonna move over to a question for Sephel. The moment from this arc that sits with me the most and the deepest is hands down Seraph's murder.
Yeah.
That was a wild ass dark twist. How did that one feel for you, Brendan, as a player? And also, what was going through your head when you had Sephel clean up a crime scene with that?
I knew. Well, first of all, as a player, I'm not a stranger to how dark Will can get, but it does always hit the way it's intended to. The reveal of Bupito, doing what he did, and the almost sleep paralysis effect that Sephel was under was just such a beautifully terrifying and awful scenario. That was, it was so much fun to think through that. Sephel cleaning up Sareth's body, I knew wasn't going to look well to players or listeners alike. But it was a kind of cool first introduction to myself, really, of the dark, like the cold calculation that Sephel is. Because I was trying to build in my head how he worked as an intellectual and how much of his strategy and planning and calculating allowed for empathy. And that was sort of the first moment where I really had like a hard decision of, yeah, this isn't going to look good, but this is the call. This is where his brain is at. So it really helped me see in the character, I think.
I love that you played that a little gritty.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's really easy to do like we all know what the right thing is in every instance, or we should anyway.
Yep.
So that was really fun.
I mean, it's a complicated scenario, especially where you think of Sephel was already a little bit distrusted by the current party because of his revelation of what he was being so fresh. It wasn't going to look good whichever way it happened. So there was that added layer of complexity there, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I really loved the FU moment too. When
Wow, that brings us to our next question. Lara, how meta was your decision to go down there and look for those egg fragments?
Yeah, Lara.
All right, so
how meta was that?
I do my best to be completely, in character at all times. I really do. And in that moment, I was literally thinking like, we just talked about getting crafting materials and there is this badass eggshell down there. It was perfect, Brendan.
Yeah.
And in the moment, I couldn't even keep the grin off my face because I was like, better go down the hall.
I know. I feel like you and I across the camera were having a stare off, like, you're going to do it? Yeah. You're going to do it?
You're going to do it? Yeah.
No, and I mean, meta is such a strange thing to navigate with, especially I didn't think of it in the moment when I chose to put Sareth down there that we had literally talked about finding material and I should have known that was going to be a thing anyway. I bust you about it. I genuinely didn't think it was meta. I think it was just such a beautiful coincidence.
I mean, I think no matter what, I think no matter what, if there was not a body down there, I still would have had the thought of like, what can I make a shield out of? I wonder what that egg is made of. Yeah. But it certainly didn't hurt.
but it was also such a shaping moment in the Lara Sephel relationship.
True.
Like it pushed so much forward. I honestly would have been upset if it hadn't happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it really informed the dynamic, especially between the two of them, through the foreseeable future. That was an important moment for the two of them, and forming this kind of alliance of there was formed intention, and then all of a sudden, kind of eventually became a comfortable relationship. This brings us to our. No, please.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say, I tend to forget too that was it Eldith, the female
dwarf,
and she had literally warned Lara against Sephel. Like there was a lot.
There was a lot of distrust early on, which what informed a lot of his early decisions, and I definitely think it had consequences going later.
Yeah. She warned you, and then a short rest later, she was dead, and that was like one of the last things she had ever said to you in character.
Oh my god, that's right.
Yeah. This brings us rather nicely to our first listener question from one of our Discord members. Join our Discord, Sakajua, who asks, Lara and Indigo, how would you have handled Seraph's murder?
That's a good one.
I'll go out first if you don't mind. Indigo and Honeydew would have been a blubbering mess and immediately woken everybody up. Look at this! Look what happened!
Remind me, did Eldith die first and then Sarth, or was it the other way around?
Other way around.
Other way around.
I thought it was the other way around, yeah.
I think it was Eldith first and then Sarif. I think
I think
Sarif
so.
went
I think
down.
that's right.
I think Sarif went down like in the in the long rest after we were mourning Eldith.
Could be. It's been so
Yeah, I don't
long.
remember.
Yeah. 'Cause it's
But
just those two deaths right after
I know,
another.
right
Yeah.
back to back.
similar
And then-
names. We
and
knew
then
little
meeting our-
about both of them.
meeting our good friend Athera right after that too. But we'll get to that in a moment. First,
Right.
Lara.
Yeah, that's
what,
later.
what would Lara have done if that had happened to you?
If Lara, I mean, she would have stayed, like, if she was paralyzed and like this like sleep paralysis, whatever, saw it happen, she'd have tracked that man with her eyes and stared at that door until she snapped out of it, and then she would have booked through that door and just completely, like, narrow-minded tunnel vision hunted him down.
Ugh.
100%. And, you know, maybe done like a roar on her way out so other people woke up, but like she wouldn't have said anything.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, Lara attacks everything head on,
Mm-hmm.
so it would have been, that was a personal offense.
Yeah, it
If
would
you
have been
would've
like,
watched
"Oh,
it.
you can't face me, you coward!"
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Absolutely. Fun question.
Yeah, thank you to our listeners. Now, you know, I'm thinking through this in my head. You know, after whoever went down first, the next thing we did was come upon Athera in the library. So anyway, so we met this incredible character who had a rather dark arc that we chose to explore. Thanks, Lara. In tight succession here. A question for Will. What? Since we just found out that you homebrewed all this stuff up, was there ever a chance that Athera could have been moved from the castle, or was her destiny always going to be ultimately tied to this place that she had been kind of cursed to wander?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Ooh, you guys really want to know the answer to this?
Yeah.
She could have absolutely left.
Yeah.
But
that hurts.
There was a surprisingly, there's a lot of magics, preventative and altering magics happening within the Underdark, and particularly with a lot of you. She had a curse upon them. So diving into a little bit of the homebrew lore I had behind this whole castle, and a little bit of you guys had learned of this, like it was part of a kingdom, and she had come from the Feywild, hearing the plea of a particular individual who would later become the king of this small kingdom that so many people had tried to take, because they were originally mining these crystals, these very valuable crystals, which you guys have gotten a little bit of your hands on. And there were, if you guys remember, there was these paintings inside, and you know, this was like during the time where, oh God, what did I have the king's name as?
Gallus Thorn.
Gallus Thorn. Thank you. I was like, I know there's a thorn in there.
Callback.
Yeah, King Gallus Thorn was in the middle of his rebellions when he had made a call to a higher power, and she was kind of booted out to be like, well, see what the hell's going on. Is this something worth it? Because this particular area had become so infused with magics and the life and death. Of course, it had drawn the attention of more powerful beings, and she did not agree with the stance that he had taken, which was taking the fight to these slavers, essentially, of his people, because she just didn't care for bloodshed. And you know, they fight, they come together. She sees, you know, he very much is like, walk through the camps with me, see what's up. And eventually she sees what he's trying to do, and they actually end up forming a very strong bond, like a friendship that spans for years. And it's only much later that they actually fall in love. and they marry each other. And so finally, when this I believe you guys learned it was a witch who had come along, who was a friend to them, and she kind of curses them both. And essentially, you would have had to, if you had gone into the throne room and put Gallus Thorn to rest, would she have been free, because she has a far longer lifespan than he does, but he has been sitting there, a ghost, living through the memories and watching his people starve and decay and all this stuff and eventually die in front of him for like 1,000 years, essentially. So it was a very dark backstory that I was like, it's all right that they didn't really get through that.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily play into anything, but it was just a fun sub story. But yeah, she could have, if you guys had like put them to rest.
Along that line, the second question from our listener, Sakajuea, could we have taken Gallus Thorn? That sounds in a maze of deadly encounters. The big boss guy is not going to be a pushover.
He definitely wasn't going to be a pushover. With the people you had lost by the time you guys were making your way to the back end of the castle, it would have been a very tough fight. If relationships with the NPCs had managed to stand up, and Bupido, who was already on a ticking clock, had not made his move, I think it would have been a normal encounter for you guys, a reasonably difficult challenge, But you could have taken him, yes. And there were some magic items waiting.
Ugh.
A tantalizing call.
Ugh.
Tantalizing call.
Guess we'll just head on back there then, huh?
Yeah, let's take a detour.
Yeah.
Yep, go back through the Dark Lake, which, has some stuff.
Just a couple demon lords. Just a couple.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. You should not be listening to this unless you're caught up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, on this same Ethera line here, our next question for Lara: how hard was it for you to, in character, both bring Ethera back from the brink, learn her story, and then hand her a bomb to go cover your retreat?
That was we touched on a very dark subject that episode, and I mean, I think it made like perfect sense with Lara's backstory. And I even said this, I think, after the recording, like, Lara, her backstory, she was in a position where she wanted to give up, and she wanted to, not be Lara anymore. But she didn't, and she has never regretted it. And so when it came for Ethera, it was kind of like, it couldn't possibly let someone make that choice. And then, she, and then it just kind of turned into this whole, whole thing where clearly I think we kind of realized that she was cursed, and that this wasn't quite as never seen cut and dry, but like, there was a lot going on there that she might not have even escaped in death. But clearly being alive and not being able to leave, or leaving and having this like PTSD, like mental breakdowns, emotional, whatever going on. Like, I don't know that we could have helped her in the Underdark anyway. Like, we don't have any resources. We don't have any sort of, I think at that time we were level 2, level 3, maybe.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, so it would have been an uphill battle. Not much we could have done. We couldn't even help ourselves, and yeah. And I think at the end of the day, it did come down to the roll. And the roll was, here's a bomb. So
yeah, I mean, we already said it, that the whole fortress was really the introduction into how dark, and kind of terrible it is
Yeah.
down in the Underdark, and sometimes you don't save everybody,
Right.
and you
Right.
don't win.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything is crushing around you, and Aethera was such a terribly sad introduction to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do when there are no good choices to make? When
Right.
there is pain in every page.
Yeah.
I think giving you guys as players, like, I think it can be so hard sometimes to just come up with like small talk for your characters,
Mm-hmm.
And so giving you guys these kind of situations or choices or, a hard combat, whatever, that forces you to make decisions in character and as players provides so much more insight to who they are that you can then later explore and then have those smaller conversations come out of.
Yeah.
And what I think that's easier as a player and more telling than a lot of things that you could do in a game, personally.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of that too, like, ultimately, everyone said their piece in that moment in this like beautiful setting where we could just have that, like, learn a bit about everybody. And then ultimately it really was choice
Mm-hmm.
for Aethera.
Nice. Beautiful. To completely change subjects. Will, what was that random giant skeleton about?
Wait, what?
Oh.
So we're in the fortress. We're getting towards the very climactic courtyard, and off to the side there's a giant a giant sized skeleton, and we're just like, we're gonna look through this door first, and of course outside was a goblin orc ambush that kind of precluded the rest of our investigation. But what was that about?
So, in part of the backstory as to what had happened to the castle and its people when it arrived in the Underdark is nobody could leave the castle. All the people that had been gathered into it when it was teleported into the Underdark, they couldn't leave, and so they were trapped. Food runs out. They can't go anywhere, but that doesn't mean that any other denizens of the Underdark can't get in. And so it was an ogre skeleton. And because these orcish and goblin hordes were like, free castle, yo, like, let's get in there. And so they had staged like small sieges, these different small roving bands to get into the castle. And that particular one happened to be an ogre that had joined up with some that had actually perished before the end of the rest of the people.
Very cool.
Yeah, again, you're talking about the depth of this castle and the layers of history playing out. Very nice.
Thank you all.
Here's a question for Sephel.
Alrighty.
During this part, and we see the kind of the distrust and also the burgeoning kind of friendship with Lara, out of necessity, I suppose I'll say. Which of your allies here does Sephel trust most, and which does he trust least?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a hard question for this part in the narrative. Because it's hard to establish allies when you're very well aware of where you stand and it's not in an optimal light. I think at this point, however, Sephel was mostly in the mind of survival and what decision is going to take us to the next step and which one is going to keep us alive. And so in that vein, I do think he saw Lara as the optimal survival partner, I guess. Like if anyone is going to be able to make the tough calls and look at things critically and not crumple under the pressures, he would have looked to her. That being said, he knew it was a difficult relationship to navigate, but he definitely relied on her from a survivalist perspective, and respected her from that perspective. Trust the least.
Stool.
I feel like it's so easy to say Stool, but he was actually rather quiet. We just heard him in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we still had a bunch of NPCs with us, or
Topsy and Turvy.
at least a handful. Yeah, Topsy and Turvy, I think, they took off right after Bupito did. But yeah, I think that's it's so difficult. I would probably say Topsy and Turvy in the bits that they were there, because they were loose cannons, regardless of whether they stayed or they goed or went, and ultimately they did decide to go. They were so unpredictable, and that doesn't bode well to a survivalist mind. So probably them, but honestly, in the main party, it would have been Indigo, because his naivete would have killed us if he hadn't gotten a few hard slaps of reality pretty quick. He was so open, so energetic, so like lively. Sephel was sure that he would kill us.
Listen, not on purpose.
That's exactly it.
Welcome to the same. This is a beautiful segue into our next question. This was the fortress, the castle, as it was called, was our first full-scale madness failure.
Yup.
When we got to exercise the name of our podcast, the Madness Table, and we all messed up. And by messed up, I mean rolled low numbers that were not good.
Yeah.
And we had a full party psychic break, essentially. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, but to lead you in, give you a moment to think, I'll address a question I have in here that says, Indigo seems go with the flow, but when he fails sanity checks, a lot of pent-up anger seems to come out. Where are all these negative emotions coming from? I think for Indigo here, he is someone who has not had a terribly difficult life up to this point. So he has that naivety, and he has that kind of, that softness, that innocence that comes with it. But he is also at this point a third level, cleric caster. There is a depth to him, but he doesn't have an outlet for his negative emotions. And so when situations arise, when he has a break with his ego and superego, he just has his id, and his id has things that it needs to work out, and he has a chance where he has absolutely no brakes on his impulses. And when the governor's off, boy, can get it roar.
I have sort of a maybe a deeper question, I guess, for Indigo, but you saying that, and that is something that we'll touch on again in later arcs of the story. But do you think that, Indigo is so light, and so he doesn't express negative emotion very frequently. Do you think that he, as a healer, and especially with the people that he's surrounded with, does Indigo feel like he has to be that person? I almost wonder if he thinks that's his job to take, he has to be the shining light for an otherwise
does he want to be a wuss?
Dim, cold group.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, he does feel like that's his role, and he's also the role that he has been prepared for as growing up in the Abbey. surrounded by you kind of like gentle scholars. Like that's been his example. And when he has now, for the first time in his life, had a hard kind of like shift in his surroundings. It's kind of one of those moments when you're taken, you leave your hometown for the first time. And for the first time, you really start identifying with your hometown because suddenly you're far from home and suddenly all the thing you took for granted is not there anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, those things about his personality, that lightness, it's something that he was very used to and now feels, he's a very young man at this point in his life. Like when he was back at the Abbey, he could be kind of a schmuck if he wanted to because he was the junior. Now he is a contributing member of a life or death party.
Wow.
And so I think that does bring out like a perhaps a heightened version of the Indigo who grew up to that point. A combination of who he is and also who he feels like he needs to be in order to, survive the day.
I love that shit. Sorry, I didn't want to derail. That's just, Indigo is such an interesting personality to me. I love digging into that.
It's a wonderful puzzle box. But how did Lara, Sephel, how did you feel about your first forays into mechanical madness?
This first one wasn't. I mean, I was on the outskirts because the PvP was between you two. But I mean, just the feeling that like you are completely out of control in that scenario in a game where like is lots of control is pretty very fun. Like there's just so much chaos that can abound, which makes it so much fun and so like unpredictable. And I love to play in that space of like, Will, you were talking about how like it can be really difficult to do like small talk and little moments like that. But in this scenario, it's like super fun because you're given the prompt and it's like, oh yeah. I can run with this. So it's very fun. I had fun with it.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that whole being a weird scenario of absolutely no control. And as a player and Sephel as a character, I'm not a fan. No, but it was so fun, and having that like being the target of Indigo's madness frustrations is very entertaining to me.
Yes.
Somehow that pent up rage tends to have a very specific direction. No, but I think another moment that kind of beautifully informed where the characters were in that moment, because it sort of dropped the facade for a lot of us. Like we saw Indigo break and turn into that little like first drop of aggression. I think the madness that Sephel rolled, or at least the one that Will described, was the illusion that everyone was coming to get me. That I was a target, that there were people like coming to attack me, which was very like where his mind was at that moment. So it was such an appropriate break of psyche of like, this is too much and we're starting to crack under that pressure. It was really cool to start playing through.
That particular moment was so like random rolling couldn't have generated a cooler, better storytelling moment there, because just like what happened and what came out was it still stands as one of my favorite moments of RNG just working its magic.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, I have one last big juicy question for all of us here. Speaking specifically about our castle arc here, from the moment the door slammed shut until we, were gliding away with Grim with that last burst of fireworks in the distance. What is your favorite castle madness table moment? And we're going to start with Lara, and then we're going to end over here with Will. So Sam, think quick.
Yeah. My favorite moment, I mean, it has to be the moment between me and Brandon when I went down the hole. Like, that was just really fun.
Yeah.
Meta, call it meta if you want. That was fun.
Brendan, what's up?
Like, yes, that moment, but I would have to say the moments after, where everything came out and we knew Indigo was about to come and ask questions. That moment of, what do we tell the kids?
Yeah.
that was my favorite.
Yeah.
That was absolutely my favorite.
Yep.
Beautiful. For myself and young Indigo, I'm gonna go with the death of Sarth and Eldith as kind of twin moments, because it's moments when the severity of our situation was suddenly very clear to me.
Yeah.
And especially with Seraph's murder at the hands of Bupido, it was the first introduction of like a villain to our story. He is the bad guy here. And that
gave us a direction to walk.
Yeah, began an arc, which we'll talk about in a future bonus action, would be very important. And how about for you, Will? And I do have one additional follow-up for you as well. But go ahead and tell me, what is your favorite moment here?
Gotcha. Well, I loved every bit of what occurred.
Fuck off.
No.
Favorite child
moment. I have a favorite moment. I do. Like the madness one that we were just talking about. That one, just because of RNG, as I said. But it was when you guys were leaving the castle. That final battle, your final moments, the handing over of the bomb, hopping into the boat with Grim. Because to me, that was the true intro into Out of the Abyss and to you guys as characters, because it was
the title shows up on screen.
Yeah, exactly. Opening credits have now begun, because it was, here we go, shit's really real. You got a taste of basically everything thrown at you within the course of, I think, in-game time. I think it was like 2 days, essentially, for you guys.
It's pretty quick.
Maybe it was a tiny bit longer, but it was you got the Hail Mary thrown at you, and you came out what felt like truly forged characters with nowhere but growth and expansion. And it made me feel really proud as a DM and excited for everything that was going to come after that.
Yeah, very well put. And then my follow-up to you, Will, as the one who knows and sees all that there was to explore in the castle, was there anything in there that you were kind of like, I wish they had, opened that door or asked that question?
Oof. It would probably have been the throne room.
Yep.
Because like, as much as I wouldn't change what you guys did, but to see the role play and the fight that could have happened or not happened within that throne room, to like really seal up that little story there of that castle, would have been super cool to see how it would have been played out. But honestly, I love what happened more. I really do.
You heard it here first, folks. We are the best party to ever play Dungeons and Dragons.
Cut the tape. Cut the tape.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Bonus Action, where your questions are answered, or at least mine are. Please send any questions you have for our wonderful DM or yours truly, or I guess the other chuckleheads who play on this podcast as well. You can shoot an email over to us at themastable@gmail.com, or you can come join our Discord and hit us up over there. But thank you very much for joining us, and until next time, May the madness continue.
Oh man, is that the time? We're overdue for another check-in with you fine listeners. Thanks as always for being here right up to the outro. We really appreciate that. You will never believe this, but we recently hit our 1-year podcast anniversary and 3,500 downloads. It's truly been a blast. We're having just a grand old time, and we look forward to another 50 episodes to come. Hopefully you join us for those next 50. That being said, we do have an exciting announcement. We have launched a Ko-fi page. Yes, that's Ko-fi page. There's no pressure to do so, but if you want to toss a coin to your witchers, that's us. You can head to ko-fi.com/themadnesstable. All donations will go first toward our monthly operating costs, which include our podcast hosting software, items like that. But our ultimate dream is to be able to upgrade our setups, to be able to offer live stream recording sessions to get that sweet, sweet video content to accompany our audio. If you're not able to donate, but you want to support the show, we would just adore you if you left that 5-star review in whatever podcatcher you're currently listening in, or if you just spread the word and tell a friend. We would be eternally grateful for that support. So that's it. Until next time, when...
The madness continues.